Alrighty, guys. Well, welcome to week 8, lesson 2. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Some housekeeping. Tuesday, we looked at Django and all its awesomeness. Today, we will continue looking at Django. In the schedule, let's take a look at the schedule, see what we have at this time. So we are on week 8, guys. Okay, this is very, 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 very important, okay? Remember, we needed to have all of our discussions complete by this day, as well as assignments, okay? If you have not completed your discussions, I would do it right now in hopes that you're not reprimanded for it. Please go complete your discussion right now if you haven't done so already, okay? And those assignments if you haven't turned them in, okay? All right, awesome. So that being said, we're in week 8, guys. This is the last week, right? And then you go to the next stack, projects in algos or MERN or Java, right? We might all have different stacks that we're going to. So pretty exciting stuff. Honestly, we're here at the end. So that is something to be happy about. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward to our good things. But before we do, Deshaun says, woo, yes, woo is correct. What is your good thing for today, Big Y? Remember your Big Y, guys? We got some, we had some troubles. We probably still having some troubles with code. We will always have troubles with code. That is why debugging turns out to be probably, I would say, 80% of the work. And then 20% is probably coding. And I don't know what the 10% is left to do, probably debug the rest of the code. But that being said, we have a good quote for today. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Okay. We don't even know exactly where we're trying, we're trying to get to. Sometimes we just got to keep moving forward, keep swimming, right? As Dory has so eloquently put. But that being said, let's go ahead and continue to move forward. Let's see. All right, so congrats to all those that have belted, right? We have a few belts in our midst. So great job, right? It takes some dedication, takes some work. So absolutely amazing. Right now you'll get to show that in your certification. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so we'll start with our warm-up question for today. Warm-up question is, in your opinion, what was the hardest thing to learn in the Flask framework? I really want to know just to make sure that we could try to make it easier, right, for those that come after you. So what, in your opinion, what was the hardest thing to learn in the Flask framework, right? It's take some thought. It's going to take probably some learning music. So let's see if I can get some lo-fi pulled up. And let's see. If I'm correct, I think I have a filter right now for the microphone, so I might not hear it if it decides to play. Yeah, looks like there's a filter. All right, let's take a look. Joins and methods, okay. The information is be passed from the query and the method, okay. Join functions, okay. I'll let you guys keep typing. All right. All right, let's take a look. Let's see. All right, let's take a look at these responses. All right, so it was a toss-up between joins or methods. I read the sections on joins and left joins 100 times and saying it's static versus class methods. Yeah, for sure. And while I mostly get it, getting gun to my head, if you needed me to explain them to someone competently, I might not be able to. I get you. +1 to 1 or +1 to Jinja, or I guess getting really getting into it deeper. It makes sense now, but I didn't realize what all you could do to implement it in the HTML. Yeah, for sure. This is a big one, right? So the joins are a very big one. This happens every single time. Methods are another big one. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. There is some talk on how we can try to make this a little bit easier inside the learning platform. So we've been looking at how this might be easier. If you have any ideas on how this might be easier to learn, please send them our way so that we can try to implement something that will help make joins a little bit easier. Methods for sure can definitely be another one. We haven't gotten to methods just yet. We're kind of focusing on joins, how we can make these a little bit easier to understand. But if you have an idea for methods, also please send it our way so that we can try to implement something. Let's see what else. Knowing the information needs to be passed from the query in the methods. Yeah, for sure. So there's different ones you can argue here. I think the most confusing one, I think in the beginning, is why do I have to, take the results and turning into an object? And that at first can be a little confusing. And then you get objects inside of objects. So that makes sense for sure. The join functions. Yep. And the routes for creating, updating users. Also using one-to-many tables. Yeah, one-to-many tables and many-to-many will take some time. So for sure. So good. So this kind of lines up to what we thought it would be. Like I said, if you have any ideas on how to make this a little bit easier, maybe you learned it a specific way or you had a resource, let us know just so we can implement it, make it a little bit easier for the next peeps that are learning these. Cool, very cool. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward with today. So need to know, today is the last day to begin the exam. Is that today? No, that was yesterday. I don't know why that's still there. Because today is Wednesday. Today's not the last day. Yeah, yesterday was the last day. Don't know why that's there. So that being said, Django, we're start jumping into Django. So we talked about Django yesterday, and we talked about how it, that it's very prominent in these bigger companies. We have some pictures here of some of the companies that we're looking at: Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify, and it's pretty interesting to know that their back end, right, could essentially be powered by Django. Now, the thing that we need to understand about Django, and the reason I said back end, is that sometimes there's a bit of disconnect when we talk about what technology is being used. And sometimes we'll say, oh, it's only this technology, or it's a bunch of different technologies, and it can get confusing. And at least it can get confusing for me. And so I want to kind of take a quick pause and talk about these different connections. If you were here for office hours, you got to hear it. But some of you guys that are watching online, you guys have never watched my office hour videos. You guys are watching it straight from the learning platform. And so you've never actually gotten to see these extras. And so what I want to do here, just to help you guys out, is essentially talk about it here briefly so you guys get the idea. And you guys can access it through the learning platform instead of having to go find the link to our office hours, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change what is being shared, because right now this is not a whiteboard. So I'm going to go ahead and share a whiteboard with you guys, and then we'll walk through it. Okay. Cool. Can you guys see the whiteboard? Is it just a whiteboard, or is it the screen with the whiteboard on it? That's my question.
So it's just like a white screen with like a mouse, but I guess it's the board. It's white, so
So that's a whiteboard. Okay. All right, we'll write on that one. Okay. Give me 1 second to send a quick message out. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So let's go ahead and draw these two things here. Actually, let's draw one thing first so that we can understand this, okay? For those of you guys that were here for office hours, you guys know exactly what I'm about to talk about, okay? So when we created Flask, right? When we created Flask, you might have heard me talk about this a couple times, and I said this right here is a server side rendered application. Okay. When I said that, what I was trying to say is that the HTML, the CSS, right, or the HTML, because we don't mess with the CSS or the JavaScript. When you use Jinja, we're changing the HTML. We're adding certain things, we're removing certain things, and we are essentially kind of the builder of this web page, and then we're sending it out, right? So our templating engine is building it, making these corrections, and then it's sending it out so that the client can receive that information. Okay, now the client's going to receive that HTML. Okay, the HTML will be received as well as the CSS and the JavaScript. When they click on a button, that request is sent out to the server. The server does some work, takes the new HTML page, and then it sends it up to the client. Okay, so all of the work is being done on the server. Okay, that is what we did. That's what we just learned. We learned Flask, and that's exactly what they use. Now, the disconnect that I was talking about, that I said, well, there's a little bit of a disconnect when I start looking at these different technologies, is that sometimes I will mention that we'll remove this server-side rendered box here. See if I can undo it here. We'll create a new one, and we'll color it a little bit different. We'll color this one orange. Sometimes the disconnect is that we might say, hey, we have this really large, or sorry, not Flask. We have this really large company that is using Django. When I mention this, we sometimes start thinking, well, I'm looking at Pinterest, but Pinterest is an app. It's an app on a phone. What do you mean they're using Django, right? Or you'll see something else and be like, what do you mean? Like, how does that work? Their pages aren't redirecting like ours do. Well, the power of a lot of these frameworks is that you don't just have to do server-side rendered, right? Another thing that you can do with both Django and Flask is, instead of sending out here some HTML page where we say, okay, return render template or return this specific web page, we can actually return JSON. Okay. So when we return JSON with these, when we get these different kind of requests, if we're requesting something here, let's say this route is just /, we'll get some JSON. If this route is like /, we'll say comments. We'll get a different JSON message, and what we do with these is we send them over to the client, right? And the client receives these different messages in JSON, and then they're able to do something with it. Okay, so you can do this with both Django, you can do this with Flask, you can do it with a bunch of other technologies that are out there. So sometimes when I say, hey, this company is using Django, we're like, I cannot see it. I can't see how they're using it. That's because their front end might actually be, well, let's change the color because that's orange and that's not what we want it to be. Let's change the front end to be green. Okay. That is because the front end, or actually even better, let's change it to blue because React is blue. Okay. The front end could be created with a different language, different framework. Okay. A very popular one that you see is React. Another one is Vue. There's other ones out there, but those are the ones that I can picture at the top of my head right now. Okay. Now, this client can be coded not only in React, right, or created with Vue, but it can also be just plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? If we really wanted it to be that way. And then it could use fetching, right? The thing about this is, and the reason I say this is so that we realize that if I say this company uses Django or has used it in the past, it does not mean that their front end is using it, right? Necessarily. They could, but it could also mean that just the back end, the API, is created in Django. Okay. So that they can use, some of the power of Django, some of the power of the framework, whether it's, it's easier to write or it does a lot of the work for you, whatever the case may be. It could be created in Django. The thing is they might have multiple servers around the world. And so some of them might be, might be coded in Django and they all get connected to the same database. And another one could be coded out, maybe, let's say, Flask, right? Man, that's horrible. I need to use the text. Right? We'll add that real quick. Flask. Okay. So they can be coded in whatever different framework we'd like, and then we can just serve up some JSON to the client. Okay. So when we say that, we have to understand that the client could be coded out in many different ways. Okay. And when I was kind of first learning this and I was first going to these different stacks, I didn't know this, right? This didn't click with me at first, or I didn't really understand it, which kind of really led me down very curious paths when I was researching information, right? For instance, if I said, I want to create an application for a phone, and I wanted to see how that could work. I was looking up how to create an app with HTML, CSS. But the thing is apps are native. They don't use HTML, CSS. They use the native language to create these components. Now, can you use HTML and CSS to create a native language? There is tools out there that are supposed to be able to do that. But we do need to understand that there's differences between what we're learning here. Web application means it needs a browser because the web application can read HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and do some work with that. Or we need to learn another technology, right? Another skill that allows us to create this front end for an Android or for a Apple device or for any other device out there. Okay. So hopefully this was beneficial. Did this help you guys out, or maybe, give you guys some aha moments where like you didn't really know that this kind of happened? Or if it didn't, let me know. Let me know in the chat. Deshaun says, pictures always help. Love good visuals. Nice. Cool. All right, awesome. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, right? That we might have this kind of split up. And if you start looking into other technologies, right, you've taken this one stack. Now you have the motivation to be able to learn different languages, learn something else for a front end, or learn something else for a back end. You will start running into this type of situation where they have divided out the client and the front end, or the front end client and the back end server, so that you can use these different technologies. And if you run into that, now you know why that is the case. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and stop share, and then we'll go ahead and continue with the class. Any questions about what I just mentioned? Any questions? Because we had seen server-side rendered was what we learned. I just told you guys about client-side rendered and how it needs to have a conversation with an API, essentially, is what we're creating. So any questions about that? Let us know. If you have any questions, just let us know in the chat, okay? Don't want to pause too long and And you guys don't have any questions. Okay. All right. So that is that. The next thing is let's now jump into Django. Now that we understand what I mean by, hey, you know, Django may be used by different companies. They might be using it for a backend. They might be using it for the full application. It's kind of completely up to the company. And it's also completely up to you if you're working on an application that uses Django. But that being said, let's go ahead and start looking at templates. We kind of jumped into them yesterday, and we got to see our first little template. And we created something very simple. I just created this index HTML page. And we went to Bootstrap, to the site of Bootstrap, getbootstrap.com, I think it is. And we were able to get this boilerplate code. Okay, now from this boilerplate code, we were able to add some code that we saw in the learning platform. So we went to the learning platform and we were having a discussion about, where is it here? Templates, right? And so we were at templates and we talked about how our HTML will be in this folder called templates. Okay. And it talked about how views can render those templates, right? By calling it whatever string, just like Flask, very similar to Flask. We have some differences, slight differences. Okay, how context is what carries the information, and so in this case, the context was this dictionary that had name, favorite color, pets, some information with a list here, list of pets, and then we were able to use Jinja in the HTML, just like Flask, to be able to show that information. Okay, so we did that yesterday, and we got that to work. Okay. Did that yesterday. Here's the information. And here is what we coded out inside the views. Okay. And we even coded out banana yesterday. I forgot about that. So we covered that. We're not going to worry too much about static files because we're not using them, but it's very simple to use them. You just have to make sure to add this Jinja that says load static. And then when you load static, the way that you use it is, notice this href here, okay? Has some Jinja, then it says static, because it's in a static folder, and then it says CSS. Why? Because it's in a CSS folder, which is within the static folder, and then it has a /, and then it has style.css. Why? Because style.css is inside of this section. Okay. After you do that, you're able to load up the CSS and you can add some custom CSS if you would like. Same thing applies if you're trying to bring in a script, right? Some JavaScript. So maybe you're going to do some front end validations, and you're going to code it out in JavaScript, and you're going to do all of the coding with, you know, selectors and whatever it is that you're going to use. To do that, you would, you know, write script source, and then you would have this Jinja here. Okay, notice the similarities. It is in a static folder. The static folder houses the CSS, images, JavaScript. JavaScript is inside of static. We have static, JavaScript, /, and inside of that, you're going to have the script. Okay, not too terribly difficult. Also, the same thing applies with our images. We have an image, images here, inside of our static, image, source, Jinja, static, images, / whatever image it is that you will be using on the web page. Okay, awesome. All right. Any questions about that? Sorry, I kind of said it and then I skipped ahead because I was like, oh, we're using Bootstrap, but it's still important for images if you're not bringing in images from an API. So, and some JavaScript. So let me pause real quick. Any questions about this? Okay, make sure your server is running when you're testing out the CSS. Okay, make sure the server is running and the server is Django. You're jumping in there and you're saying run server. Okay, so we could test it. Cool. Cool beans. All right, we're gonna skip this one right here. And we'll skip this one. This is actually a really good one to start playing with right now. You guys, if you're trying to learn it. Where is it? Okay, cool. So now we get to our get versus post request. We luckily already know this, right? We already know get versus post. Get is going to be, we're getting information. And post is, hey, I have a form that I'm filling out for you. I'm going to go ahead and post some information here. I'm going to send it your way. Okay. So we know the difference. It's going to walk you through something here. It says learn how to handle GET request, learn how to handle POST request. As you can see here, you can say if request dot method is equal to GET, right? So in Flask, we had said methods is equal to a list of what methods we allow. In this one, it's if request dot method is equal to GET. Okay. Or if request method is equal to post. And then you write your code inside of that. Okay. I did see some errors in some of the coding that I had seen from some assignments that were sent in. And I want you guys to kind of rethink sometimes the way you format your code. For instance, in this one, it doesn't say if not request dot method is equal to GET, and then it has an else, and then it does the return. Okay, so I've seen it a couple times where you make the code kind of incredibly long without having to. And that's okay. Right now, we're getting used to it. We're trying to learn the dry principle, which is do not repeat yourself, and essentially trying to write code as cleanly as possible. Sometimes these ifs can be switched, right? So think about this when you're coding. Instead of saying if is valid, then you can do this work. You could say if not is valid, return redirect, right? Super simple. So instead of having to create two different like if else, right? Two different conditional statements, you don't have to do that. You can make it a lot easier. And so I did see that a little bit, and I just wanted to mention that there's different ways of messing with these conditional statements. It's not always, you don't always have to use if this is true. You could always use the opposite if this is not true, right? To make things a little bit easier. Okay. All right. Next is submitting form data, right? So request.method, request.method. If it's equal to post, we're going to print the request.post. This is whatever we're getting back to the server. And if they were trying to get some information, that's going to be a request.get. Okay. That is a method that they'll be running. The next thing that it brings up is something that's super important. It says, we see this CSRF token. What the heck is a CSRF token? Why? Right? It tells you right here. It says one more important thing to note is that any form being submitted as post request must include a CSRF token. This token is used to prevent cross-site request forgery. Okay, so essentially trying to stop some hackers from being able to try to act like they are somebody that they are not and submit some data to the site. Okay. It says here, adding a CSRF token to our forms allows Django to add a hidden input field and value that helps our server recognize a genuine request. And we'll see that when we actually get to see the HTML. We'll show you what that looks like. Okay. Awesome. All right. The next thing here is that what they're doing is they're creating a function. So let's see what's going on here, right? So we know Python. We know that this is creating a function, is receiving requests. If the request.method is post, that means, wait a minute, they must have hit submit on a form, okay? And then it says here, we have a value is equal to request.post. We've seen something very similar to this, right? And we just add it to this specific value, okay? Awesome. All right. So this right here is the post form submission. Kind of walks you through how to do it. This is what we're going to do here shortly. We're going to create a small little form here. It tells you what to do so that you can get the information on the views.py. Okay. And let's just go ahead and start coding it. Right. All right. So let's go ahead and bring this up. Let's see if I can get the VS Code up. What is this? Let's see. Did it close? Oh, okay. Ooh. I was like, man, it closed. I was a little worried there. All right. So let's go ahead and get this up and running. Let's see where we're at right now. Actually, we're going to have to go back to the virtual environment. Okay. CD into my environments. Okay, so we have to get this virtual environment running. Source, Django, Django env, then activate. Okay, so now the virtual environment is activated. I'm going to cd out, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into our Django. Okay. Clear this, and then we're going to cd into Django project. All right, we're in. Yeah, we're good. All right, so now we can go ahead and run Python 3 manage.py and then run server. Okay, give it a second. There we go. Okay. All right, letting it do its thing. Okay, so we have the URL here. Copy that, go up here, paste it here. So we can see what's going on. This is what we had yesterday. What does that mean? What we had yesterday is we said if, well actually let's backtrack and we'll look at the URLs. So the URLs are super important. The path that we're following is super important. First place it hits is URLs here. It says any URL, right? And I want you to include Django app URLs. Well, what's that? Well, if I go up here, this is the Django app and this is the URLs. If I go here, I can see, hey, if this is remember guys, this was equivalent to this, right? Empty is equal to / okay? Right? It can throw us off. It threw me off, right? Views index. So it'll show you the index page. That's what's going on right now. That's perfectly fine. We had another one here for banana, and then this number views banana. That's fine. We'll leave it as is. Okay. So we're currently showing this guy right here. Okay. We're currently showing the index. So we have to change a few things. So we're going to go ahead and do that. If you were following along yesterday, you and I have to change a few things. And so we'll jump into views. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this because we don't need this context here. Right? We're about to create a form here. Okay. So we're going to take this context off. Okay. This is going to be the location where we're going to create the form. So we're going to go into here. And we're going to take all this off. We can change this to login and register. Okay. And then we can start creating the code for our form. Okay. The form that they give us here that tell you about is this one, right? We just have a name and an email and a button that says create user. Okay. If you want a little bit of practice, I think it's better if we kind of remember how to create at least a register form. Okay. A little bit longer, but that's okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, we have Bootstrap here, so we can play with this. We can add some stuff. So by doing the body, I'll just do it in a div. Inside the div, we'll do a form. Inside of that form, we're going to have a div. Inside of that div, we're going to have, and actually we're going to do multiple of those. So we'll do div. And inside of that div, we're going to have label and input. So we're going to have a label plus an input. Okay. And that is first name, last name, email, password. First name, last name, email, password. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 4. And we'll go ahead and create this. All right. So we have a form, then action. We still need to add the methods or method. Capital post. Okay. And then we have this div. Inside this div, we have a label. We have an input. Okay. This is text. This right here will be our first name. Okay. So we have first name. Cool. We have first name, type text. Nice. Name is equal to what? Right. Name is equal to name. We'll say name. Cool. All right, so then we have the next one here. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing here. This is gonna be last name. Input, type text. Name equal to name. Okay, awesome. for the next one. Label, email. Cool. Type. We could say email actually here. I think this would also add some front-end validations. All right, cool. We'll leave it as that. That's fine. Then okay. This will be type password. And then last but not least, we have a div. Inside that div, we'll have a button. We'll say input, type submit. And that's going to say register. Okay. What you just saw when we were typing, we typed all these things. We were using I just lost it, what it's called. Emmet. Sorry, we're using Emmet. So if you saw that and you're like, is he using an extension? What's going on? We're just using Emmet. Emmet allows us to type things a lot faster. Okay. And honestly, I could have added some things that I forgot to add. This form isn't going to look so nice, and we're about to see how it's going to look because we haven't added some of the styling. So let's see. Right? Yeah, no styling. Ugly. We can add some bootstrap styling. I always forget what it says for the styling for the form. So give me a second. We'll get this one. We'll get this so it looks nicer. I saw some really good styling, by the way, on a lot of these exams. So very good job, guys. Give yourself a pat on the back. We have some styling masters in here, Michael. For sure.
No.
Yeah, I saw some really nice ones. I was like, oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna add that here. And then form label here. And form control. Here. All right, let's go ahead and add those to the rest of them. Copy. Label. And then input. Okay. All right, some things we didn't add, which we still need to add, is we still need to say name, email, and name, password. All right, let's see how it looks. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it looks a little bit nicer. Yeah, it looks okay. It looks okay. Not the nicest, not my favorite, but it looks okay. Let's see. We're gonna add some. Kind of bothers me. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Okay. Oof, a little bit better. Thankfully, that button though, hideous. I don't like that button. Let's change that button. Okay, very good. Now we're talking. Now it looks a little bit nicer. All right, let's see. All right, so we have this information now. We have first name, last name, email, and password. We have register. And now we have to make sure to get that information. So where is it going to go? The action is going to be / we'll say register, right? We've already seen this before, so you know what's going on. We go to our views and we have to do just that. Okay, we have this banana one. Let's change this one to register. Register. No longer will be taking in a number. So if it's no longer taking in a number, we also have to say, hey, in our URLs, this banana is no longer banana. It is register. Okay. And it is no longer looking for this information. It is looking for register. We still have to have one more page. And the other page, we'll have to make it. This will be, let's call it dashboard, since we're so comfortable with the dashboard. We'll say views dot dash. Okay. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us we need to create a dash as well. Okay. So we're going to do that. We'll say def dash request. Okay. And then we're going to return render. And we still need to create this one. We'll just call it dash.html. Almost forgot request. Okay. And let's go ahead and create a dash. So I'm click in here, create a dash.html. We will take a copy of here, paste it inside of dash, take off the form, and change this to dash. Okay, cool. Now we can just say, we'll just say hello user, and then we'll fix this obviously here in a second. Okay. All right, awesome. Okay, so that's good to go. Let's just make sure that it is working, still working. Okay, let's go see how the dash looks. Did I call it dashboard? I think I did. And let's see. Did I not call it dashboard? Let's take a look. So we have URLs. We'll call it dash. Okay. Let's just change it to dashboard. Okay. Broke something. Reloading. Okay. So now we have a hello user. Okay, cool. So now we have both of them working. This one. Okay, cool. All right. So now we need the one that's going to take care of the information, right? So this little guy right here is going to take care of the information and do some stuff with it. So this is going to return, redirect to dash. Okay. All right. That means I need to import redirect, and I think that's going to be from URLs. All right, let's take a look from where it's at. All right, we have views, redirect. So did Django shortcuts import redirect? All right, cool. So Django.shortcuts import render redirect. Okay. There's actually two. We should take one of these off. Okay. All right, cool. So now we have that redirect, but now we have to write something here. So we'll say if request dot method, I believe is what it was, is equal to post. Then we can run the code that is in here. Else, we can go ahead and return, redirect, back. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and start writing some logic here. So in here, no, this is this redirecting? No, it's not redirecting. All right, so we have include form app.urls. Okay, that's fine. We've already done this. We set this up yesterday. Okay, so it doesn't confuse you. What's going on here is we are in the form test. This is the project, and so this is these URLs down here. This is what I showed you in the beginning, and this is what we're doing. We're including the app URLs, which we already have. This is what we were playing with here earlier. We created a views.index. We already have that. We have some other ones now. Okay, this is the index page. We already have the index page. This is their index page. Ours is a little bit nicer, right? Okay. Then we have action attribute. We've already played with that. Method attribute. We've already changed it to post because we know we're going to post it. But we haven't added is the CSRF token, but I want to see the error that it's going to give us. Then we have some input elements. We already fixed that. A way to submit the form. We've already done the way to submit the form. Okay. The next thing says, let's see, form app URLs, users. Okay, this is the create user. This is the one we're creating, but we didn't call it users, right? We called it register. Okay. Here on the create user, it's getting the post information, request.post, right? And then it's returning, rendering the request index back to the page, and it's just printing the request.post. That means the information coming in, which I guess would be kind of nice to see. This is what you're going to see, something like this. Okay. Now, on this one, it's actually assigning a value, and then it's telling you to print it, and it's telling you how to access data here. Then finally, it's using some Jinja here. Okay. Now it's using context. This would be the appropriate way, right, to use context. So there's a lot of steps here. Let's go ahead and let's break it down into fewer steps because they have a lot of steps here. But it makes sense if you're doing it on your own. If you're doing it on your own, this makes sense. But I do want to show you guys the error that happens, and then we'll remove the error. Okay. So if request, we're just going to print request dot post. Okay. And then else, we're just redirecting. All right. So let's make sure that everything is still running, going to good to go. Okay. Let's go ahead and refresh. Press register. Forbidden. CSRF verification failed. Request aborted. You are seeing this message because the site requires a CSRF cookie when submitting forms. Okay, so we were able to be blocked. This is good. That's what we need. Okay, and the way to avoid that is we need this little guy that they told us to add. Okay, and so let's see how that looks. So right here, top of the form, we're gonna go ahead and add it. Right, we just see this, but that's not actually what happens. Right, the really cool thing is that if I inspect this now, and I've added the CSRF token, if it loads up for us. All right, see this input? It is type hidden, automatically created for us, which is really cool. It's hidden, that means they can't see it. Here's the name, CSRF middleware token. Here's the value, it gives it a value. This guy right here is what stops other people from saying, hey, I am this person. I'm going to submit some information over to you and hack your site. Now this will help stop that, alleviate that. Okay.
But can't they copy that using inspect element?
This is like my specific one. So if they're trying to do an attack on another computer, they don't have this one. They would be creating like let's say they were using like Postman, like submit some information, they wouldn't have this CSRF middleware token because this was created for me. Yeah. And so they'd have to guess. What was that?
It's created for that specific like IP address or for that
It
specific.
should be for every specific user. So like it changes. Like if you see it right here, every time I refresh. So let's just remember RQ UI. Completely different now. Don't know what's going on under the hood, but it's completely different every single time. So they wouldn't be able to guess what this would be very easily. Pretty cool stuff.
Oh, so maybe the server, when this page renders, the server generates a new token.
Yes.
Every time the server renders the page, it sends the page info over with a new token. And then when you submit the form, it must contain that token back. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool little security thing there. All right, so now we see it. Now it's there. Let's try resubmitting it. But let's actually add some information now. because we don't have any validations right now or anything. So, all right, click register. Okay. No reverse match at register. Reverse for dashboard not found is not a valid. Okay, so I might have put dash on accident. All right, let me go fix that. All right. Let's start from URLs just to make sure I don't have a hole there. We will go to dashboard, views.dash. Go to views. First, we go to, this was a post method, so it should just print this information. Did it print it? Yeah, it's right there. Here's the information printed. But after that happened, just printed it and it didn't return anything. I'm guessing that's probably what it says, reverse. There's no reverse for dashboard. If else, turn redirect. Here, let's see if this fixes it. Okay, so it's not that one. All right, let's see. Oh, cool. Look, this is the information I submitted. These are the cookies. This is the CSRF token. It's got a lot of information, a lot better than the Flask one for sure. Let's see. So the last one I did was return redirect here. It still says dashboard is not a valid view function or pattern name. Okay, return redirect.
Oh, what?
I'm not getting to this one. Oh, I
Oh,
have
the
two.
function name is dash on 16.
Yeah. The what?
The function name is dash on 16.
Also, this return is not I put two returns. That's also another one. But yeah, this one for sure, because it said dash. That was a good catch. Thank you. I would not have found that one. All right, let's see. Let's go back. Module Django app views has no attribute dash. Oh, but it is looking for dash. Let's see. So it is looking for dash. And dash.html. Let's try it again. Oh. Try it again. Okay. All right, so we're back at it. All right, let's see. Return redirect. Let's take a look at the redirecting.
Oh, I seem to recall redirect was the only one that you add a slash to.
That's what I was looking at. So it looks like this should work. All right, let's see. Go back. Nice, there we go. That's what it was. Yeah. Cool. Nice catch. All right, cool. So that's what it was. We were missing that little back that little or forward slash. All right, so cool. The cool thing is we were able to see that information down here, which is really neat. We can see that that little kind of saved CSRF middleware token, and then we can see first name, last name, email, and password, right? Plain text password, right? So now the next thing we have to do is how in the heck am I going to get this data, right? How am I heck am I going to get this data into this guy right here? Okay. Well, we can go ahead and let's see. Add some attributes here. Returning redirecting back here. That's not what we want. We actually want to go to the dash.
Can I mention something?
Yeah.
Just when I switched to Flask, it took me a long time to to stop using request.post instead of request.form. Uh, when I was doing Flask assignments, I kept doing request.post.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. Somebody had a question earlier. They had said, like, what's the kind of one thing that you kind of see when you're switching between the languages? And this is it, guys. I mean, you're going to be using things just like Michael was saying. He was using the request.post. I've done very silly things the same way. Like, you just, sometimes you want to switch the language and you just forget that this is for a different language or a different framework. It happens. It happens to everybody. So it's funny to know. So this will happen with your languages. This will happen with your frameworks, especially if you know different frameworks for like front end design, that you're going to be mixing things up. But it's okay. It's part of the process. All right. So we have define register. Let's see what happens here. We said, okay, if register.method is equal to post, now we can run some logic. So obviously this is a post method. If it's not, it's just going to redirect back. So if somebody tries to just go to that URL, it's going to say no. We're going to redirect back to the login. Okay. So now we have the request.post information. Okay. Now we can redirect to the dashboard. We can have that information here. And we can show it, right? Essentially what they did here is, well, not here. Is it here? Return render request. They're not using a redirect, so it looks like that's because I don't think you talked about redirect here. Let's see, where are we at? Redirect is up here. All right, let's see what they're using, what they're doing. See if they're redirecting. If not, we'll do it that way. So we have create user. We've done this. Create user, request.post, print, return, render, request, index.html. But aren't they going to show? Okay, cool. Create user, context. Yeah, okay. So they're rendering, not redirecting, and redirect, you lose the information. So unless you use something like messages. So they're not redirecting, they're just going to render something here in order to keep the information there. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we have register, we have the information that's come in. We're not going to redirect, we're just going to return render the dashboard so that it has access to that information. We're going to create something called context. Okay, this is our dictionary of information. And we're going to go ahead and say, okay, we need to show first name. So F name, right? F name is a string because we don't have a database right now. First name, last name, email, and password. Okay. What is that going to be? That is going to be request.post F name. We'll copy that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This will be L name. Okay. Email. And password. Okay. We'll be sending context into our dashboard, which means that we have access to F name, L name, email, and password. Okay. Hello, user. Cool. Let's go ahead and do them in p tags. Okay. Using some Jinja. This is going to be F name. Last name, email, password. name, email, and password. Okay. All right, let's see if we run into any errors. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and put some information. Register. Okay. All right, awesome. So we have some errors here. Let's see. Object, not a dictionary. Okay. All right. It is probably because of the way I did this. Yeah, so doing it like this, I wonder if you have to do it like this. If not, oh, no, actually, no, I didn't send requests. I bet you that's what's causing it. Okay, cool. Let's try that again. No, and still loading, still doing its thing. No, it looks like that's not it. Or template does not exist at register. What do you mean? All right, take a look. Oh, that's funny. Did we call it dash? No, we called it. All right, register. Still loading up. All right, cool. There we go. All right. All right, so we were able to use that CSRF token. We were able to create a form here in the front end. We used a little bit of Bootstrap, and then we were able to get the information from the request.post, render a new page, and then show the information on that new page. Okay. All right. We got the token taken care of, and we looked at the different type of request. And now, closing, today we looked at Django. Tomorrow we're going to look at some APIs. But before we go, Michael, do you think you'd be able to show who we talked about, or we'll save it for another day?
Yeah. You want me to share screen?
Sure. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. I just wanted you guys to see a completed kind of Django project, some of the code and how it looks. Just because tomorrow we get to look at APIs, we don't get to really complete Django, but I'd like for you guys to see it.
So you want to see the code. See where that's Dojo Weather API. Where's my other code? I think this is one. Yep. Okay, so got app folder, static, templates. So what part did you want to see?
I think I would like for them to see the models because we don't get to cover the models, but actually when they're, when it's having the discussion with the database and how that works.
Yeah. Okay. So what is this? This is inheritance, right? So it's
Yes.
importing. See if I can remember how this works. So it's importing the models file from Django. Models file has a class called manager. So this class, which is actually not a database, is it? Yeah. Yeah, this is a database. This is a database class. That's like a template, a class in your template. These two are user and book. These are regular classes. But yeah, you're importing the models file at the top from Django, not Django. Yes, Django, from Django, using the model class and all of the properties and attributes, all the methods and attributes of that class are inherited by this class and by this class. And then you've got the attributes here. There is no init method. There's just attributes. And that's it. There are no, you don't have to write the methods yourself. They're pre-written for you. Well, I guess I'm speaking, I guess I'm speaking for Ryan's benefit. Ryan, are you following?
So it looks like it's just Ryan. Oh, I guess everybody jumped off.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
watching.
So yeah,
This one I
guys.
actually. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. What were you gonna say, Ryan?
I was saying this is what I actually was like had a question about was like the database stuff for Django. So
It's
this is good
pretty
to know.
easy. It's a lot easier than writing it is a lot easier. Writing this database stuff, like that's it. Use your class. This is why all of your classes go in one file instead of having a separate file for each class. Oh, looks like my computer's not plugged in. How did that happen?
Yeah, so this right here, for everybody that's watching online, this is what I wanted you guys to see. This little piece of code right here essentially is handling everything that you guys have done. The left joins, the queries, all of that is done for you. So that's what makes it a lot easier. I really wanted you guys to see that. But other than that, guys, for everybody that's watching on, or go ahead, sorry.
That being said, I understand what this is, models.charfield. That's using, from the models file, it's using this class. This is invoking a class. It's creating an object. This is creating an object using a class from the models file in the under the hood in Django. And like this is creating an object, this is creating an object, this is, I understand what I'm looking at. Like I learned how to use it a year ago. Now I'm after doing Flask, I'm like, oh, now I understand exactly what that is. Okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way every single day. I think I look at another, like something else that was coded out and I'm like, oh, I understand this and I didn't understand it back then, but I knew I could make it work. It's almost like APIs, you don't really know what happens inside, but later I think if you with enough time you realize kind of what's going on inside.
Yeah. I just disconnected my other two screens because they were was causing my computer to freeze up. Like my mouse pointer was freezing up. But yeah, so the models are here. And is Ryan still there? Yep. Ryan's the last man standing. And then user.objects.get, you've got this extra word in between, but it's basically the same thing. There's get is a get one, and .all is get all. And then you got the same bcrypt stuff, create, like the .create method, the get one, the get all, those are all pre-written for you, so you don't have to write that code. This is like Flash, it's not exactly the same thing. So we've got create, get one, get all. Were there any other methods? I think there's a delete down here. There's delete down here and update down here somewhere. But also all, okay, this is the opposite of skinny controller fat models. This is a very skinny model and all the logic is in the controller. Which is why, like when people with Flask keep saying over and over again, like skinny controller fat model, skinny controller fat model. I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with logic in your model? I'm sorry, what's wrong with logic in your controller? Like that's what I'm used to because I did Flask for the first year. Not sorry, I did Django for the first year. So I'm used to seeing lots of logic. I'm used to seeing all of the logic in the controller instead of in model.
Yeah, I like that a lot more. Is this all in the learning platform, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything on
the
Django, yes.
Cool.
The stuff that's on the learning platform, if I'm not mistaken, the stuff that's on the learning platform under the Django chapter is all of the stuff that I learned when I was going through the program. That's all the stuff that we did in, like, it should be, I'm pretty sure it's the same assignments I did, although I think that version of Django is up to date. I think it's teaching like 2.0 or something that's like very, very out of date. It hasn't been updated.
Mhm.
So some of the information might out of date. You might want to update your Django, use the most recent one.
Yeah.
There might be some
If you-
differences, but I mean, even
you
if you
update it,
learn
yeah.
if you learn it through the platform that way, then you can go, oh, the Django docs are so much easier to understand than the Flask docs.
Oh, definitely.
Let's see, I've got Windows in the way here. Documentation. Let's see, how about one to many? No, let's do many to. They've got very clear examples and explanations of how to do like many to many. Okay, class, Django input models, character field, class. Many to many fields. And what are you putting in as publication? Oh, yeah. So this is your first class, and then you want to create a relationship between publication class and article class. So in one of them, create a variable, and you call you create an object. This is creating a many to many a relationship object, I guess, and you use the first class as an argument when you create this model, or when you create this object, when you call this class and create the object. So the publication goes here in the many to many field. And like you read this slowly, it still takes a little bit of work to understand what's going on, but it's just so much more logical and so much written so much better than the Flask documentation. So you can teach yourself, it's a lot, long story short, it's a lot easier to teach yourself Django than it is to teach yourself new stuff in Django, like template inheritance. One of my favorite things. Django template, built-in template tags and filters, custom template. Maybe it is extends. Okay. Maybe it's this one. There we go. Template inheritance. Come on, why didn't you search that for me? There we go. How to use template inheritance. Extends. And then block. And block. Like you read this stuff, like I figured out how to use this just from reading the documentation, and it wasn't too hard. It wasn't super easy, but it wasn't too hard. Anyway. Robert, anything else you wanted to see?
No, I think you did great.
Anything else you want Ryan to see?
No, I think that was awesome. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and share. Well, I guess we don't have to share the screen. We already know we're on week 8, guys. It's the last week. Other than that, we're coming up on the next stack. But other than that, guys, for everybody that's watching online, I want to thank you guys for staying tuned till the end. Got to see a little bit more information here. But other than that, we will see you guys next time.